get literary pieces and literary pieces from the overall poem, but we also want to make sure that we're focusing on analyzation, inferring, drawing conclusions, themes, central ideas, and literary concepts. So as we rotate, we're going to spend 7 minutes in a group rotating, and so we're in groups of 4s. So we want to remember our norms, that we're on task, low tech, high engagement, and that we are holding each other accountable, and we're completing those 4 essential comprehension questions at the end of each station. Are there any questions before we get started? And pause. So what did you notice me say and or do to make that lesson more impactful?
You gave them, first of all, you gave them evident or a concept from from Macbeth, and then you gave them options with that, and like you didn't tell them the answer, but at the same time you had them explain why their answer was correct. Also,
Why is that important?
Huh?
Why is that important?
Because it helps with them with their comprehension, as well as it helps them support their answer.
Mm-hmm. And then processing what they need to know.
Okay.
Okay. So you're right, not giving you this answer, you need to know it, but then justify your answer. That goes back to citing the textual evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as you can see, when I asked you, I said, well, what information drove you directly to realize that that's a central idea? And so I implored you to go back in that literary piece and dig out key words that you could put it with a central idea, showing the relationship between that literary piece and the overarching novel. What did you see me do that were key moves?
I'm sorry, what?
What did you see me do that were key moves in instruction?
Eye contact, as well as you went over the norms. You checked for understanding as you did as you went through the lesson.
How did I do that?
By asking questions.
So what questions? You remember one that I asked?
How I like the different elements within the within Macbeth, and asked me what elements, or not what elements, but what words I associated to make it the central idea, and not a linear analysis or the thing.
And then once you had an opportunity to respond, not saying that your question was wrong or right at the time, I left you and did what? You remember what I did after you answered and I asked you why? I then called on who?
Oh, you called on somebody else.
I did.
To do you agree or disagree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How is that beneficial to student understanding?
I think because it's not the teacher telling, it's more like you're discussing between two classmates, or getting feedback from another classmate on why things, or their interpretation of the literature. Yeah.
And so what's impactful about that is that you get to showcase the students' knowledge, but also the textual evidence that they're using to support their claim. And so the more we get to supporting the textual evidence, the better we get to realizing, is it a literary element thing, central idea, or interpretation? Because we have that direct evidence to support that. Or to dismantle it if it's the incorrect answer. And the other thing is you have to give that wait time.
Oh, okay.
So when you was looking for that acknowledgement of whether it was right or wrong, and I was still waiting on you to justify your answer.
Okay.
Noting all the time, I didn't tell you if it was right or wrong. I asked you to support your stance. And so that's getting back to you being able to draw your own conclusion, infer, analyze the literature, and then being able to cite the textual evidence. Okay? So we're gonna let you walk me through. I'm gonna play the role of student. You're gonna be the teacher. Lead me into the instructions, starting with the do now, into the station instruction, giving me explicit directions, and then I'm gonna critique you as you go.
You want me to stay?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good morning, class. So today for our do now, we are going to look at our standard 12RL, which 12RL 2.0, which states building comprehension and appreciation of literature by analyzing, inferring, and drawing conclusions about literary elements, themes, and central ideas.
So pause. So I'm gonna start you, because you're the instructional leader. You gotta be confident with leading this instruction.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I want you to reread that, and I want you to draw me in,
Okay.
knowing that you're confident in knowing your pedagogy and your background, and that I'm following your lead.
Okay.
Okay?
So today we're going to look at Macbeth, and we're going to build comprehension and appreciation of literature by analyzing, inferring, and drawing conclusions about the literary elements, themes, and central ideas from Macbeth. So today our do now is going to talk about what makes Macbeth a hero. Okay. So when we look at what makes Macbeth a hero, would we consider that to be a literary element, a central theme, a central idea, or a theme? Take a few minutes to write that down. All right. So let's discuss. Just call him? Oh, okay. So, Mr. Clark, what do you feel that what makes Macbeth a hero? What would that be?
A theme.
Okay, very good. And why do you think it would be a theme?
As we've read the book, we've looked at his heroism and how he has defeated men and warriors as well as evil predecessors. And so I think that by classifying him as a hero goes back, it's an overarching concept of more of a theme compared to the central ideas or interpretation or literary element.
Very good. Very good. And so that goes back to the overall theme that we've been talking about during this month, which all talks about heroes and what makes a hero, and it also talks about the different characteristics that we talked about last week that make a hero as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into our stations. And so when we go into our stations today, what we're going to do, we're going to have a station that is going to build on drawing conclusions, also build on making inferences. We're going to look at central ideas. We're going to talk about different themes. We're also going to look at literary elements and all the and when we do that, we're going to make sure that you all can demonstrate by using textual evidence that you have a better understanding of the comprehension in the literature. Okay, so remember that when we do these stations, we want to make sure that we are fully engaged, which means cell phones are out of sight, out of mind. Also, that you are holding each other accountable, making sure that you are communicating with your peers, and that's all.
So a goal for you was being able to relate it to a past unit that you had been working on.
Yes,
Making connections with your students. Roles for you is making sure that you explicitly let students know what they're going to be able to do. What do they need to be able to do in order to master this concept? What are key takeaways that they need to be able to do? Citing the textual evidence, analyzing the text, inferring ideas, drawing conclusions from 2 literary pieces. How did that feel? Explain more to me. You say it's all right.
Felt nervous.
Why?
I don't know. I guess it's because I think it's because like you're an administrator, and I think there's like a certain level that I should be at, and I don't know if I'm there. But I feel like with students, and with having another teacher in there, it's a little bit easier to bounce off of each other.
Okay.
And
But if it's not another teacher there, how do you lead the instruction and make sure that we maximize student achievement?
I think for me, I'm able to bounce different things off of students. I don't know. I feel like it's easier to talk to students. So, but like adults, it's a little bit more nervous.
How did you feel when you were up there leading the class, outside of being nervous?
I felt okay. Yeah, I felt okay.
No, I'm asking. So the modeling helped?
Yes.
How so?
Yes, because it gave me, it showed me different points that I needed, I should have within giving a lesson. And it showed me different elements that I should include, especially like reviewing the classroom norms, also letting students know like what they're supposed to do within those stations.
Mm-hmm.
Also, how to, I mean, I didn't do it, but how to like bounce off, like you said something and then have another student say something else. So different stuff like that.
So in our past weekly data meetings, we've been talking about the instructional framework of the classroom and looking at pacing. So how many minutes we spend on this compared to how many minutes we spend on that, and how we protect that instructional time. So I wanted to make sure that we continue to keep that in mind as we move forward. And I'm going to come in on Tuesday and I'm going to observe the lesson. If you have an opportunity to go back and reteach.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that you're in a good place so that we can unpack this standard. You now have the exemplar, the teacher exemplar. You know what students need to be able to know and what they need to be able to show and or do. And so my hopes are that when we come back, we're going to see a greater push for that. We're also going to make sure that we continue to use student work to drive our reteaching opportunity. So if we go back to that 75% of our students who master that exit ticket, we want to continue that. That 75% puts us on a trajectory at the end of the school year to be proficient and on the grade level of where exactly our students need to be. And so I'm impressed with that, and so I want to commend you on that and continue that work. And then I also want you, similar to what you did on this last Friday, on Friday before you leave school at 4:00 p.m., you send it this weekend. But remember, we talked about Friday sending me the percentage mastery.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So send me the percentage of mastery in both of those classes, the English web as well as the basic skills. And I want to make sure that we continue to track that, that data point as we move forward and finish this second semester off strong. Any questions for me? Well, I thank you for your time. Again, I'll be in on Tuesday to observe that lesson. If you need anything, feel free to reach out to me. And then I will schedule some time so that we can meet for our weekly data meetings, on
Okay. So on Tuesday, so when you say that reteach the lesson, should I get with or how should I guess the question is, how should I present present it to Miss Hanley and Miss Pray Sinclair that the lesson needs to be reteached?
Yeah, so I want to see this one and implement it in that, let the class which you lead directly.
Oh, so like in stations? Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Anything else for us?
No, sir.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good day. You need anything, feel free to reach out to
I
us.
sure will.